You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there and welcome. I hope you are doing well whenever and wherever you are listening. Today, I am wondering about authenticity. I am also seriously wondering about that old white dude who was so fucking pissed off at me in traffic a few days ago. Let me paint the scene for you, in case you didn't see it on my social media. On this particular day, I had driven from North Texas to uptown Dallas to see my hairstylist. And I know that sounds very privileged. I get it. I truly do. And it's one of those cases of, I follow my person that knows how to fix my hair. I found her when I first moved here to McKinney, and I go where she goes. So the latest thing was that the salon 15 minutes away closed down several months ago, and I now have to drive to Dallas to see her. So, or I should say that I get to drive to Dallas to see her. I get to plan that trip into my day. I am certainly grateful that I get to do that thing. I really am. And trust me, I have to remind myself of this after I've spent nearly half a day on each one of these little excursions. I tell myself that I have a choice to switch stylists at any time. Anyway, I was returning from one such excursion and feeling pretty good about myself, as one tends to do after they have been styled and prettied up. I was almost home on the very last mile. And I was sitting at this traffic light and positioned just far enough back that I was blocking access to the right turn lane. And I was positioned just so because there was a line of cars in front of me. I'm going straight. It wasn't just me being an asshole. So I see in my rear view mirror that this guy in the car behind me was trying to get into that turn lane, and he was livid. I mean, he was pitching the biggest fit that I could nearly see the veins popping out of his face. I'm not even exaggerating. He was yelling. You couldn't hear him over my music, but it was clear he was yelling a lot. He was waving around, gesturing, hitting the steering wheel and his dash, laying on his horn. And I just sat there like, it's kind of fascinating, this reaction, isn't it? I mean, there's nothing I can do about the cars in front of me to create more space and give him the clearance that he needs. And all of the yelling and raging isn't going to change that fact, my dude. This went on for at least a full minute because I ended up sitting through that complete light cycle. It just so happened that the truck in front of me did inch forward just a bit, and then I followed, and the raging dude just gunned his car into the turn lane and went on his not so merry way. It was something to witness, I'm telling you. Now, what does this little share have to do with authenticity? Well, for one, I sense that I might refer back to it at some point during this little talk, but I do have to say this about that man's moment of full-on rage. We've all experienced something like this, right? I have to hand it to him. He was expressing all of his emotions in a big way. I have to give him that, because I've talked about how we tend to not do that. I've talked about it in the context of the way small children will throw tantrums and incorporate their entire body into the moment. I've talked about how they are following their inner wisdom, and they really don't care what anyone thinks of them in the moment. They don't care where they are, who they're with. If that flood of emotion hits, they are in it. Did this man behave like a small child? He really did. Gotta admire that. He may not have accomplished much in doing so, but he did get to feel his feelings. Phew. I hope he felt better afterwards. I've been thinking about authenticity in the context of why it is that we don't embody who we really are or what we're really feeling about our experience. I'm just talking about day to day here. How often are we masking what we really think or who we really are? Do we even know most of the time? Probably not. I mean, we've been well conditioned over our lives to act a certain way and behave a certain way in the company of others. And certainly there is a decorum to situations. Your workplace, for example. Your leadership may or may not appreciate you walking around to coworkers' desks and smashing things while you say, "I'm just living in my authenticity." There are certain rules, if you will, for what you can get away with in life. I'm not trying to imply otherwise. And it's always your choice to play by the rules or not. It's always your choice whether you want to continue playing a certain game or if you want to cut your losses and walk away from it. That's what I'm saying. And how much of what we do on a daily basis, how we show up, respond, or generally interact is true to who we really are. And how much of it is manufactured by the matrix and we are doing what we have to do in order to survive. I get so curious about that. Like, what would happen if we said out loud what we were really thinking? Would people be amused or horrified to see that part of you? Would they come after you? It's interesting. I think more than anything, it's important to be true and honest with ourselves. And that's what I think of when I think of being an authentic human. True and honest with yourself at bare minimum about what you like and don't like. Now, if you listen to my recent episode with Kim Guillory on human design, you'll know that I have been practicing stepping into my sacral authority. That is a very simple yes or no. Uh-huh or uh-uh. That is how it is typically described. I've also since heard there can be an in-between. It's just about the tendency for some of us to use noises in our decisions. Regardless, what this is doing is tapping into your whole body authority. With sacral, it's your gut, and allowing the answer to come to you that way instead of defaulting to your intellect. Because what your stupid intellect is going to do, yes, I just referred to intellect as stupid, bear with me. What that's going to do is create a whole movie scene around how this might play out, and it's probably going to have a lot to do with what other people will think of you. It's going to write out a complex formula, if this, then that, and we'll believe it so much that we won't even take the chance on being ourselves. And let me be very clear. We do not get to control the thoughts or the actions of the other humans. We never have been able to. Yet, somewhere along the line, we got that impression. So we keep right on trying anyway and hoping for the best. We hope that we are accepted. We might even hope that we are a little bit appreciated. And maybe those things will happen and maybe they won't. And none of it will have a thing to do with what you did or said. It will only have to do with their thoughts about what you did or said. Do you get to control that? No. Do you try like hell to manipulate the outcome anyway? Oh, hell yes. We all do it. I've just learned to recognize it and catch myself a lot earlier and get curious about my motives when it comes to people pleasing. What am I ultimately trying to get from it? Probably that acceptance and appreciation. Maybe on some level the illusion of survival and safety. Oh, and let's talk about that too in a context that I haven't brought up here before. Let's talk about survival in the context of ancestral wounding. I'm only going to skim the surface here today because I haven't gone very deep with my own work yet. But when I talk about ancestral wounding, I see it in one of two ways. These are the wounds we have inherited from those who came before us, whether from our direct lineage or not. That's one way. Another is that if you believe in past lives, these wounds may have been carried over from your own experience, your soul's experience. You just may not remember them. But you have a deep primal reaction to something, like a knowing that this is bad or dangerous. So there's an underlying fear response that is happening as well, that it isn't safe to be authentic. One of the best examples I can think of is how women, and a few men, but mostly women, would be tortured and killed when it was believed they were witches. This shit actually happened. I remember learning about it in school. I'm not sure if it still shows up in history or not, but there was some very real and very crazy shit that went down at one time. If someone accused you of being a witch, you were guilty until proven innocent. And how did they do that? Well, one way is that they would try to drown you. And if you died, that meant you were innocent. Only the guilty would float. That's some fucked up stuff right there. So either way, you would die if someone accused you of being a witch. Whether you believe something like this came from memory or just an awareness that it did happen to others at one time, knowing that it really happened can go a long way toward keeping you in line, right? People pleasing is a very real thing that we do, and the reasons why are as varied as our own individuality. I'm just putting some things out there that can play into it. Ancestral wounding is something to have awareness of. Just stay there today. Your own lived traumas are another thing to be aware of, because that plays into the movie scene that your mind creates as well. And you may say, okay, I've had this terrible experience in the past, and I want to ensure that it never happens again. So you try to keep yourself small and you hide your true self from the rest of the world. Yes, it's a safety mechanism and something to have an awareness of. It might not even be something major like a physical assault or a near-death experience. It could be something much simpler, if you will, that has become attached to your psyche. Now, I just had a memory of one of my traumas over the past week. The experience itself probably occurred 15 years ago, but I remembered that the result of that experience was that I had to run around to various therapists to prove that I didn't have some type of a mental disorder. And let me tell you, that's just about as scary as being accused of being a witch. It's almost our modern day equivalent, because once you have been targeted or accused of being mentally unstable, the burden of proof is on you to demonstrate that you're not. And these days we can come up with a diagnosis for just about anything you can think of, right? I'm not implying that a diagnosis of mental illness or instability is bullshit. For sure, there are people who desperately need help, and I sincerely want everyone to get the help they need. What I am saying is that there are these containers we have created of socially accepted behavior, and any deviance whatsoever makes you the weirdo, damaged in some way. So I just want you to have an awareness of what might be behind your fears about stepping into the person that you truly are. I can tell you this much: from the time I started doing that, being unapologetically me, I have never felt freer. And that has only occurred over the past few years. We need to give ourselves permission to show the world who we really are. That's first and foremost. Then we start dipping our toe in the water. Instead of trying to determine how that movie scene is going to play out, you take your permission slip that represents your true, authentic self, and you just use it. Because you know that you have no control over the outcome anyway. Test those waters a little bit. Start racking up the evidence for how things could go right instead of how they could go wrong. Most of the time, the scary scenarios that we have played out aren't truly a matter of life or death. They are simply a matter of feeling rejected or misunderstood or judged by others. And because we don't want to feel those emotions, we'll do anything we can to avoid them and to portray a version of ourselves that isn't even real. That creates an internal dissonance. And I can tell you from experience, that is exhausting. When your authenticity comes from your heart, from love, kindness, compassion, and the best of intentions, you might just be surprised at how that scenario really does play out. More than anything, how you feel about yourself internally is so very crucial to your growth in this area. Be sure to take a moment to acknowledge or even celebrate your wins. Bask in the feeling of pride or accomplishment or satisfaction that you did the thing that used to be excruciatingly hard for you to do. And yes, I said pride. There is not a damn thing wrong with being proud of yourself. I'm not talking about a feeling of superiority over others, but pride is not a deadly sin. I don't believe that for a minute. That's a big lie as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to be proud of myself all day, every day, if that's part of my growth. And my growth is my business. Those around me will reap the benefits of that internal work because I'm going to show up more grounded, more centered, more connected to my true self, and I'm going to be unshakable. Maybe even a little unfuckwithable. You know who got to reap the benefits of my work and my growth the other day? Angry old dude behind me in traffic. How so? Well, because I found his tirade almost mildly amusing. I was not at all interested in taking on his angry energy. I seriously watched him with the same fascination that I would watch an animal at the zoo. I don't personally like zoos, but I think it's a fair analogy to use if we consider our cars are our cages, right? Anyway, his behavior did not fire me up one bit. I was as calm as I could possibly be because I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong. The position of my car was not within my control. I'm still not sure why he thought otherwise, but hey, I wasn't in his head. And that was definitely a benefit to me because he was clearly going through some things. The benefit to him was that by remaining in my calm energy, I did end up giving him the space he was clearly so desperate to have when the truck in front of me inched forward. And I'm talking about choices. I could have chosen to stay right where I was. Yes, I could have done that. But I'm not an asshole. Not completely, Anyway, my true and authentic self remains compassionate in the face of misdirected rage. I decided to give him what he wasn't willing to give me, a shred of understanding and acceptance. And that felt right to me. That felt right in my body and in my soul in that moment. Now, did I go home and tell my husband about it and later sound off just a little bit on social media referring to that man as an asshat? Why, yes. Yes, I did. I gave him what he needed in the moment. My good deed was done. That's also a part of my authenticity, sharing shitty experiences, not just the fun stuff. So other people do get to benefit from the internal work that you're doing on yourself all the time in ways that you might not even think of, in movie scenes that your mind hasn't even considered. I highly, highly recommend it. As Rumi says, caught by our own thoughts, we worry about everything. I want you to try to pull back on the thinking and the worrying and instead get in touch with the core of who you are. Connect to your body. Check in with the sensations you are experiencing. Don't try to analyze every single thing or put words around them. Don't try to predict how the scene is going to play out. Just let go and allow your true self to exist. Try this. Try it with just yourself for a week or so. Get in touch with you. I am willing to bet that you will surprise yourself. I would love to hear about it. Check my links in show notes and let's set up a time to chat. You can also send me an email. I look forward to hearing from you in whatever way you wish to reach out. My friend, stepping into your authenticity and the truth of who you are is just one of the many ways that you can light up and shine on.